It's another Monday and it's noon. So I'm not going to say good morning. I think we're past that. I'm working it out of my system. It's only taken me a couple of months. Welcome. I did the numbers and I think this is episode 16. So welcome to episode 16. We'll start off as we should with our top sponsors. And we especially want to point out FPEA is among them and that they have opened up their vendor booths for people to sign up and secure a spot for next year's convention that's coming up. So take a look there and go do that. Also, we want to give a shout out to our uh, vendor tiers, so people who have small businesses that want to benefit from some visibility on our streams, the same way that after these messages commercial used to break when we were kids, they get here, they get to be visible here with us while we try to build our community and all of that good stuff. And of course, they support us, and then we support all of our community. So it's a win-win for everybody, and they get a tax write-off, which is awesome as well. Good day, Brenda, Crystal, me. Floating heads are now visible. We're past the sponsors part, so y'all are all on stream with me now. How's your Monday?
I think Brenda might have frozen again.
I think so. That or she's looking very intently. She has an intense stare. Um, yeah, no, I think she froze. She was having some internet difficulties, so we'll try to move slowly into the introduction here, give her time to reconnect. She might even text me here in a minute, but yeah, how was your week? I know there's been a lot going on. Of course, I know, so tell them.
Yes. We've kind of had a crazy week, just,
Yeah.
as a family. Sickness and car issues and, different things.
Hmm.
Um, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, but I've also been following a lot of the Facebook groups and the communication from parents in our forum about concerns that they have with things like the category caps and how purchases from the scholar shop are being sorted into their categories and things like that. So just kind of been a busy weekend all around keeping up with everything.
Yeah.
But see if
Well,
Brenda comes back eventually.
it's funny. So just a little explanation as to why things go bonkers on the screen whenever someone leaves or joins. The screen has an overlay that's set up static for everyone to kind of fit in their place, and then I take our call and mask it behind the scenes. But whenever someone leaves or joins, it changes the shape of that window that their heads would normally be in, and since it's set up by tile, when they leave, it just gets wonky. Except for mine. Mine's directly to my webcam, so um, a little bit of behind the scenes information, but just stare at part of Crystal's forehead and part of her chin while we try to reconnect Brenda.
Fabulous. That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah, you're welcome. Hopefully you did your makeup. Not, I'm kidding. I don't care.
But yeah,
uh,
so while we're waiting for Brenda to come back,
mm-hmm,
I will just say that a lot of stuff has been happening behind the scenes.
mm-hmm.
With our communications with StepUp and Brenda's communications with different departments and legislators, and she's been following
Yep.
all the latest developments with the bill that just passed and all of that. So there's a lot of stuff that's been happening behind the scenes that we were hoping to talk about today. I want to wait for Brenda to get back to
Yeah,
talk about some of that.
yeah. There's a lot of things. I want to make sure we can talk about all of them. Hi, Dina. Greetings to you too. Hi, Shara, and hi, Julie. Welcome to the stream. I will say this that there are badges on the stream. And so the more that you comment, you might see some of these badges. The more that you comment or share the stream or interact with things on it, Facebook's backend algorithm learns your level of activity. And then after a certain threshold, you're automatically awarded with a top, you know, top fan or top follower kind of badge. They're pretty neat little things. But if you know someone who could benefit from the information that we're sharing, not just to get your top fan badge, but share it with them so that we can keep the community informed. So we had a call. I'll go ahead and start in a little bit. We had a call, what, a week and a half ago with, did she just try to email me?
I don't know, but I might turn off my camera for now so people aren't staring at weird parts of my face.
Oh, that's fine. Sure. If that,
I'm still here.
you are.
Oh, there she
Hello.
goes.
Brenda's back.
Hey, I can
We
turn my
had a
back.
call. Now I have to fix the floating heads. Give me a minute. Here we go.
I'm
Unpin you.
sorry. I don't know
Okay.
what's going on with my internet, but it is just acting very wild this morning.
It's quite all right.
Well, you
Link.
seem fine for now. It's not
Well,
lagging anymore.
I'm on my phone. I'll just stay on my phone because it's gonna not connect to my internet.
It's
Okay.
all right. You're not quite centered and cutting off the top of your head, but if that's okay with you, it's perfectly okay with us. We'll make do. We're
Yeah,
just
that's
happy to
better.
have you with us. So, a couple of weeks ago, no, not a couple of weeks ago, like a week and a half ago, we had a call with Richard Johnson, and we were specifically talking about home education instructional programs, some of the challenges they're facing. We talked about this last week on the call as well. Some of the ways in which their system is set up and their legal requirements that they have certain things on them that their system is meant to kind of flow through and protect, but then the categories that we needed and a bunch of other accommodations that would be helpful or requested or necessary. And so that was a very long call. I think that call went almost 2 hours
Yeah.
because it butted right up against my other call. And we do have another call this week with them. So we're continuing to try to pour in um, and help drive the conversation, drive the system to be tailored to all the custom things that home education families need and want in order to kind of run their things smoothly. I will say this as we dive into the subject. From what I'm noticing in the reactions online and Facebook groups, and different things like that, I just want to caution patience. Um, in having conversations, I don't detect anyone is trying to defraud you of any money that is coming your way or a bait and switch or anything to that nature. And I don't think that it's a nightmare situation that they're kind of thrust into. And
Amen.
think I personally think they're doing the best that they can. And I think, as Brenda reminds me, my grandmother said the same thing, but you catch more flies with honey. And then also that some of the times there's so many people in StepUp or in departments that are not. I mean, we're a small fraction of all of the families that are educating in Florida. Home education's a smaller percentage of that, very small. We're big with 150,000 students this year. We've boomed up in size because after COVID, but a lot of them don't know anything about home education families and what they're like or what it entails. And we're the first kind of experience they're going to get with it, or the longest, maybe the most impactful and memorable experience they're going to get with it. And I think it's important for us to remember that as we move forward into it, that a lot of this, I mean, when I grew up, we didn't have any of these scholarships or funds. Man, I'm from Alabama. We didn't even have Brenda to secure extracurricular activities for us in public schools. So we made do without a lot. And as you'll see on our website and other things, we've come from the core philosophy that the world is our classroom. And by living life, we can learn so much. You know, there's some structure to it, and curriculum is great, but I think we need to pace ourselves as we dive into trying to work the kinks out of all of this. That being said, I get that it's extremely frustrating for many who have spent the money and are waiting for reimbursements, and that's a very difficult place to be in, and it's very frustrating, and I get it. There are also home education instructional programs that are paying their teachers and waiting for reimbursements and have been waiting, and those are many families that are just waiting on money, and everyone's in waiting, and we're all wondering why. There's a lot of questions, so I think that patience as we dive into it. And I know people are going to say, we've been patient. Let's continue to be patient. So, Brenda, take us in. Where would you like to start today?
Well, I'd like to start with some good news before we get in.
Yes. I love it. Do it.
Um, for years, actually, the Gardner Scholarship started as a pilot program in 2015. Wasn't called that initially, but it was a scholarship for students with disabilities. Going back to 1999, the first scholarship program was the McKay Scholarship for Students with Disabilities. And it was basically very limited in um, uh, the disabilities that were included in that scholarship, and you had to go to a private school. So when the Gardner came along, they decided that because it was basically designed for parents whose children were going to be home educated who had disabilities, that they needed to create an educational savings account, just like, and it would operate just like a home education, a health care savings account. So you could put money into it, and then you could draw the money out of it, and so it's been challenging, as Jason was saying, because with home education families and these students, it's not a one size fit all scholarship. It's not just they can send money to the private school, boom, done. Um, with this, they've got to manipulate every single purchase for every single family. And so it's been a learning curve, both for StepUp and for parents on how to do this, because parents thought, this is my money. If I want to spend it in this way, then I should be able to. However, the legislature set up certain criteria for how the money should be spent. And so not everything that you want to spend it on is going to be covered in statute. We've continued to add to that over the years. Horse therapies were not in there in the first place. And then we decided that that was good for some children with certain disabilities. And so the legislature added that. And we've just expanded those kinds of options for parents along. The scholarship went along really well. But there was such a demand for this that every single year they had to increase it by $50 million to cover the people that were demanding it. We have consistently had a waiting list for this scholarship. I know why, because I know that parents can do a better job customizing the education for their child than the state can or the school district can, because every child's disability and needs are different. But a parent knows their child better than anybody else knows their child. So,
Yeah.
so it's been an amazing scholarship, but there's always been a waiting list. And when they merged this into the FESUA, there was some challenges, to say the least. The money's always come out of the public school education budget, because these kids are enrolled as home education students, and so they had to pay out of that particular budget. The problem is there were so many variables in the program that the legislature didn't know how much money to allocate for that, and they didn't know if they were putting enough money in the budget to cover it. So they had limited the number of scholarships in the FESUA until last week. And so the variables were how many parents would take advantage of this for their child, what was the child's matrix level. So you didn't know whether to put 8,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 in the budget to cover that. But
Right.
been such a demand for this program that last week, and this is the good news, the legislature passed the bill that would cover every student that's applied for an FES UA scholarship through December 15th of this year. So if you wanted it for your child, be sure you get your application in.
That's great. Yeah. Yes.
I
That's
wish I
awesome.
could say I was responsible for this, but I wasn't. The legislature, hearing from parents, really recognized the great need. And so there was money left in the budget, and they decided that they would just go ahead and uh, open it up so that every parent who chose this scholarship for their child could get them covered. And I'm so excited because this is amazing, just amazing uh, what has taken place in the lives of these kids. Um,
Yeah.
I were privileged to interview one of the
Sergey.
FES UA students
Yeah.
who was told after he was born by specialists that the child would never walk,
Walk.
never even crawl.
Not
And
only go ahead, sorry, go ahead. Go.
oh, good, you can add to it.
I was gonna say he not only walked in the room, he helped us take our booth down at the FPEA convention. Like that there's
Well,
so much.
and one of his dreams was, up till he's a senior this year,
Mm.
was that he could be in a sailing club and to sail a sailboat. And he's been such an amazing kid,
Mm-hmm.
so polite and so grateful that he went to the Fort Lauderdale sailing club
Mm-hmm.
and country club, and they actually allowed him to participate in their sailing club
And learn.
and created a club just for students with disabilities.
Yeah, they went
Because
further than just allowing him to be there. They created Sergey's, was it Navigators Day? Where is that what they called it? I can't remember the exact name for it. Where they allow others to come and experience sailing for that day with special needs. And it's beautiful because he was told he would never walk or talk, or his mother was told that he would never walk or talk. And he sails sailboats, helped us break down our booth at the convention, and then we did a video interview for
doing
like an hour.
and he's doing dual enrollment courses. So
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
left in the public school system with that kind of expectation from a doctor, he would have been put in a special class and never reached his full potential. And I'm not throwing off on the public school system, but when you have a parent as dedicated as his parents have been,
Yes.
getting him the best services, the best therapies they could possibly get for him,
Empowered
then
by the scholarship.
yes, it's just been amazing. And
It is.
interestingly enough, he asked for his parents, because he can stay in the program until 22. He asked his parents to please put him back into speech therapy because he realized that other people were having difficulty understanding him. And so, even at this late date, he has started. Um, that was in May. He had
Mm-hmm.
started with speech therapy again. So it's just, this scholarship has just changed so many kids' lives that
Yeah.
otherwise would have never gotten to the level that they are now. So, with
Mm-hmm.
that said, I am thrilled that the legislature is seeing fit to um, open up that waiting list and cover every parent on the waiting list if you've applied by December 15th. Now they will know going forward how much money to put in the budget. And they've allowed a 3% of all the students in the state that are on special, that qualify for special needs, and they will put that much money into the budget for expansion going forward. So that is a huge, huge step in the right
Mm-hmm.
for these kids.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. I don't even know really how to follow up on that because you're just giving me some of those memories again of being there with him. That was such a rich moment to take in the history of the program through one person and the impact that it had. It was no, it was very powerful. So um, there's more to get into. That is the good news, and that is good news indeed. Um,
So we are being successful, and it does take patience. And this PEP
yes,
program will be amazing, but
yeah,
um, because there are so many variables for parents to choose, and somebody that's never dealt with home education families, first of all, they can't even imagine that we have total control over the education of our children, because if they've only known public or private schools, it doesn't seem possible for parents to make those kinds of decisions. So why
hmm
would we give them state money to do that? It's not technically state money, but it comes through the state. um and,
right.
they
I think
they
that's important though of a nuance to remember. Though I was at a fundraising event for a nonprofit that's downtown, and they work with inner city schools, inner city children, and one of them I think was an ex football player or an ex pro athlete, and him and his wife helped start it. It's a great program, and they've done a lot through it. And all of the money that comes into that program is not state funding money. And I think that's very important to remember when we look at things like PEP is that this is not your tax money coming back to you. This is not state money being reallocated to you. It's an FTC. It's a Florida tax credit that is given to companies who want the tax credit, and they offload their money into the pool, and then the scholarship funding organization takes that money and finds a way to impact the community back with it. PEP is that way. And so it's very different than what we look at something and feel maybe a stronger sense of entitlement, like, hey, that's my tax money. It should come back to me and my kids. Because it's not it's not that. Um, so when we use words like someone made a comment here, like, I'm grateful for the opportunities that it supported my child, but that doesn't mean we can't make demand better systems and processes information. I think the word demands a very strong word here. I think we should inform the process as we go. Are there still things that are left lacking? Yes. 100% yes. Are there things that need to happen better? Yes. But I think we have to caution our language very carefully, very carefully meter how we talk about it, because no, I don't think we should be making demands on a system that is not owed to us in any particular kind of way. Um, it's not like I went to work and I'm owed a paycheck. This is very different kind of scenario. Um, anyway, that's my
well,
2 cents. Dive in,
even
Brenda.
even the Bright Future Scholarship, which is such a blessing for parents
Hmm.
to send their children to college, we don't demand from Bright Futures what it
Right.
is they want. It's a scholarship, and the terms for the scholarship are set forth in statute. Step Up for
Yeah.
Students is an administration organization. That's all they are. They get the money, then they have to find a way to give it out. If it was being run by the state, it could take a lot longer than Step Up is taking. But they finally did a great job of allocating money on the McKay scholarship. But again, it wasn't an ESA, and that is the complication that has made
Hmm.
these scholarships so difficult, is because they have to prove every individual purchase that a parent makes for each child. And it's not just a boom, send the money to the school situation.
Hmm.
Um, they have to approve it. They're trying really hard to make it as automated as possible.
Hmm.
I didn't know about whether AAA was doing a good job or not, but they're having the same issues. I heard from
Yes.
somebody this week and something that should have been approved, which was a science lab kit. They're saying that it's not required by the curriculum, they can't pay for it. So it's not just StepUp that's having problems with this.
Mm-hmm.
It's so complicated, and Jason knows and has said before that tweaking the computer system to make this work is challenging, and the people doing that don't understand home education. They don't understand what's approved and what isn't approved, and we have to go through various layers to get the problem identified. Then that person has to go to their internal system to get the computer working. And it's not that anybody's trying to hold up money for the parents. Just all of these things just converged into the
hot mess
storm, which has created major problems. The new computer system, the new law that opened up unlimited scholarships for kids that want to go to private schools, and then they threw in a brand new program that wasn't anticipated when they were designing the computer program. So all of these tweaks have had to be made, and it has been very complicated. And let me just say that we're happy. We really are happy to hear from parents who are having difficulties. And we really want to do our best to get to the right people to help solve problems. In fact, Crystal just handled an individual who we've heard from for a month or two. This trouble getting her child approved, even though she filled out all the paperwork right for the PEP. Somehow it fell through the crack. So we are advocating on behalf of individual families. We're advocating on behalf of the home education instructional programs, which, of course, the people doing the financial stuff have no idea what those are, no concept of what that is.
And we're thankful that they give us an inside track to communicate with them. Like, we're very thankful for that. We don't want to
they're
jeopardize
actually
that.
listening and wanting, to engage with us. That's what the call a couple weeks ago and this week that we're going to have on Wednesday is about. They're actually wanting us to explain to them how they can better
and to bring more issues.
Yeah, how they can better help us. Yeah.
And the more specific we can be on what those issues are and where things fell through the cracks, the better they can figure out a process around those for everyone else. So when we help them isolate an incident and go, the issue was communication, or the issue was this, and they were saying this, or it was the system, and the system kicked that thing over here, and then it dead ended into this bucket, and that was the issue. Every time that we isolate one of those issues with the multiplicity of variables that could have gone wrong for it, as we figure out where in the process it fell off, they're able to then patch that and fix that for everyone, essentially.
Yeah, so, and just
go ahead, Crystal.
Well, just to add to that, I was invited to a call this past week that ended up being with a person who is in charge for kind of improving the user experience for the Emma portal. And they had me walk through with like a test account. It wasn't my real information. They had me set up a fake account and then screen share and walk through with them. And that was a very interesting call because the person that I was on the call with wasn't a StepUp person. They were a third party that is basically on the tech development end that is going to report back to StepUp. But she said I was the 8th or 9th parent she had done this with, but I was the first PEP parent. And we ran into a host of things that she was like, wait, really? Explain to me how this works. What's a home education instructional program? Why doesn't this work for you? And so, like Brenda said, it's not that it's ill-intentioned or that they don't care. There are just knowledge gaps that they're running into as we're working through these processes. But they are actively seeking that input. I'm glad I did that call because now she took those notes back to her team for different ways in which certain parts of the process didn't work for homeschooling families.
And as an SFO that handles all of the scholarships for the state, there are other entities that they work with where things are lather, rinse, repeat. There are processes, and it's standardized. When it comes to the home education community, as we all know, nothing is standardized.
Right.
We hate standardized tests. We hate the word standardized, and we love that everything about us is custom, and that makes a custom challenge for all of us.
And
So,
say one other thing is, we could just put the contact information for the people that we're working with out there, but that would be a huge mistake in my opinion, because we're kind of the organization that's receiving as many home education complaints or problems, and we're filtering those, and we are categorizing those, like Jason and Crystal said, so that we can hone in on the exact problem. If we give 100 people that contact information, we're overloading the people that are trying to help us. And so we're trying to filter that information. Not that your information and your complaints are not important.
right.
We're not trying to keep anything secret, but
Nope.
we're trying to keep it limited so that as we categorize where the problems are, we can hone in and get those problems fixed and keep the amount of time that StepUp is expending on fixing problems and not hearing and answering emails. We're doing that to
Yes.
benefit you. So I got a very thoughtful, very, very well laid out email last week from,
Yep.
I guess, a parent. She didn't
Yes,
identify.
she Facebook messaged me as well. She's a parent.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it was excellent, the things that she pointed out in there. We're not going to connect her, a parent, directly to the person that we're working with, because if we put that information out and she's dealing with it, then that's one more person that StepUp has to deal with. So
Mm-hmm.
we're going to take all of those issues, and we've got other issues that are coming in from our
Yes.
education instructional
There's no
program.
shortage of issues. Yes.
Yeah, because they're looking at it from why their parents are not being um, reimbursed too. And we're compiling all of those. And upcoming on Wednesday, we're going to have another
Mm-hmm.
video call with StepUp, the PEP person, and he is working as hard as he can to get all of our issues fixed so that everybody can get paid as soon as possible. Now, it's complicated because one of our board of directors, who's been on a call before, very good with computers, she is very bright, and she had a major issue and could not get her program. She thought she was on the home education instructional programs approved list. But when we had that call 2 weeks ago, they found out she wasn't on that list. He went through every one of those organizations that were on the call to check to see why they were not on there. And just this morning, that this person had gotten their program approved for one program, but they actually have two, and on the computer, instead of having the name of the organization in the right column, they had the location of the program in the name column. So people couldn't get a drop down on that. They didn't know what to pick. And a lot of it is terminology. And we have a new board member who has been working to get the home education instructional programs on board so that parents could have them in the drop down. And within 10 minutes after identifying the problem, they had that fixed for this group. So you can see how fast it's going, but if you don't know what the problems are, and they don't know what the problems are,
Mm-hmm.
hard to solve the problem. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing to serve you in this community. And that's why I believe the Home Education Foundation is so valuable for parents, because we are your touch point.
Yeah.
As in the legislature, we are your touch point. When there is a
Mhm.
home education issue that comes up, who do they call? If you've got
Mhm.
10,000 people out there, they don't know who to call.
Right.
That's why it's good to have one voice for home education in Tallahassee, whether it's for
Mhm.
FESUA or PEP or just home education signed under the district. They know that parents who are directing the education of their children have a voice in the Capitol. And
Yes,
so,
and they can see the multiplicity of voices the more people are participating in things like the forum and our membership, not the paid portions of things, but just creating a member profile and allowing them to see that how large our membership list is of people that are taking information from us when we pass it on to you, and vice versa, the collection of voices that we pass on to them as we filter the message their
Yeah,
way.
and that just to build on
It's very
that,
important.
one of the concerns I've seen parents expressing in Facebook groups and in the forums is that they feel that communication from StepUp has not been great. They
Mhm.
parents aren't being told what's going on. The only way that they're finding out what's happening behind the scenes is from us.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but one way to look at it, I mean, you could look at it like they're not communicating at all. This is terrible. But Brenda makes a good point when she says that we are the touch point. So rather than
Ooh,
they know that we're in touch with the home education community, and rather than trying to figure out where to distribute that information, for now at least, because they're so overloaded with actually trying to fix the problems, I think they're somewhat relying on us to communicate that information out to the home education parents that we have in our community. It doesn't mean that they won't later on
yeah.
um, have some sort of newsletter or something. But
Sure.
right now, their priority is actually trying to get everything
Yeah.
functional.
And along that line, to echo something that she said, Brenda, did we lose you or just your video? Are you
just
there?
just the video. I'm trying
Okay.
to.
All right. I just wanted to make sure. To echo something Brenda said earlier, as a designer, when I work with, sometimes I work with companies that have a marketing person, a marketing head, a VP of this, a director of that, and a know-it-all over here. And everyone wants to participate in the feedback for the design for their annual report or for whatever it is. And it makes my job catastrophically more difficult when I'm receiving feedback from Tom, Dick, Harry, Sally, Minnie, and it's all over the place. And I don't when it conflicts, I don't know who has priority and who is that. So I always appoint one person when I'm working with them, one person to be the formal feedback. Say, talks amongst yourselves, figure out what it is that you want, and then that person is the person who will deliver to me the final notes, and then we'll come back with a revision and we'll update the look and feel or whatever it is in the design. And that has made our process, my process working with companies, so much smoother. Before it was night every time was a nightmare. And that's something that we're trying to avoid here. Not that you have to go through us. You don't. You don't. But we do have an inside track and we try to collect the voices and filter out the ones that are, you know, priority uh, and things
Yeah,
like
and
that.
we are, as Brenda said, we are keeping a list. So, for
Hmm.
example,
Yes.
I keep tabs on the PEP Facebook groups, at least one of the major groups. I keep tabs on the forums. I keep
Mm-hmm.
tabs on the emails and messages that are coming into HEF. And we have a list of sort of the big picture, like Brenda was saying, we can
Oh, this
sort
one
of
showed up 10 times, or hold
sort
up.
those into categories. Like I've heard
Yep.
from 20 different parents that this happened to. So
Yeah.
we can make a list then that we can go and we can actually say to them, this is not an isolated incident. I've
Mm-hmm.
seen dozens of parents saying that
And
this happened.
screenshots help,
And yeah, sometimes I have
especially when you're talking
screenshots.
about what the chat said. Yes.
Yeah. That one of one of the things on the list is what the customer service chat people are telling parents. Some of them are really ridiculous. So that is on my list. I do know that Everett, the guy who is in charge of PEP at StepUp, is aware that the customer support chats are lacking. He's already aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I have now some additional really ridiculous screenshots that I can share with
Oh,
him.
Brenda, you flipped your camera around and we see your kitchen now. It's a nice kitchen. But there
It's
we
a
go.
mess right now. Now, can you? I,
We
I
see your kitchen.
Flip it
I,
one more time. There we
There we
go.
go.
Now I
Now
see
we see
you.
you.
There we go.
can you see me? I can't see
Yes,
the
we can
screen.
Yes,
see
we can
you.
see you.
We can see you. Yeah, no worries. All good.
I'm
Uh,
so grateful for Jason. If I had this, it would not happen. I can't even manage to get the
no
camera.
worries. I'm decent with tech, and as a tech person, I don't know if you guys know this, but I get to see who has shared the stream. I get to see the individuals who have in fact shared the stream, and I have to say, Delene Howell, bless your heart, you show up all the time, and you are here with the roughest of rough starts of anybody has had so far, and you're positive, your attitude is great, you're careful how you communicate, and we appreciate you, and we appreciate you
Yes,
for
we
sharing
appreciate
the
it.
stream as well. So just so people can know, I can see who shares and who doesn't. There's 30
Um,
people on here, and I know.
I know Brenda and I wanted to
Yeah.
touch quickly on the issue
Okay.
of caps, spending caps.
Okay.
Because she and I were talking a little bit about this earlier, and
Go for it.
I was communicating to her what I am seeing personally and in the groups that parents are experiencing, um, particularly in regard to purchases through my scholar shop and the way that they're being categorized and the caps that they're being applied to. It's almost, in some instances, just nonsensical. And the issue with that is that certain categories of spending have smaller caps. So, if, for example, they're putting a couch that you bought for your reading space in your classroom area under learning manipulatives instead of classroom furnishings, now your $200 couch has eaten up half of your learning manipulative spending cap for the entire year. And for home educating families who use a lot of hands on things, that's a major problem because the cap was small to begin with. So, not only are the caps an issue, but if they're going to be categorizing purchases in a way that doesn't really make sense, then it becomes an even bigger issue. So, Brenda and I were talking about that this morning. That's definitely on the list of things
Hmm.
that we are going to be communicating to Everett that is just not working well for homeschooling families and the way that we teach our children. I'm running into it with mine as well because we do a lot of game based learning. And I can never tell when I purchase something whether they're going to count it as, if it's a science kit that has games and like lab manipulatives, I never know if it's going to be counted as toys and games and go under learning manipulatives or if they're going to attach it to curriculum or something else. Like it's
Hmm.
anyone's guess. And I don't know until after I've purchased it. So my spending cap for manipulatives is rapidly dwindling. Even though I'm about to get quarter two reimbursement and get a new batch of funds, I won't be able to spend it on what I want to spend it on if they're applying things to the caps that I wasn't
In the
expecting.
categories that are,
Yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah.
And,
So
and let me just say, if you're listening and you are getting a scholarship from AAA, or if you know somebody that is getting a scholarship from AAA, we want to hear from from those people as well. We're not
Yes.
StepUp employees by any stretch of the
No.
imagination.
Yeah.
Um, but we do have more direct contact with StepUp. But I did hear from somebody this past week who is having difficulty purchasing a science lab kit because it's not tied to a particular curriculum. And the reason I mention that is, and I will call AAA and talk to the head there. But the reason I mention that is because in December, coming right around the corner, the
Hmm.
purchasing guide is going to have to be approved by the
Formalized.
Department of Education. So not only am I going to talk to AAA about it, I'm going to
Yes.
talk to the department because if this is going to be an ESA scholarship and parents get to choose what they do with those funds, then the state or the scholarship funding organizations have no business limiting how you can spend that money. So, so those are two things I'll be doing this week to try to free up those things. But we don't want those caps put in the purchasing guide for these scholarships. So thank you
And
for
Gloria,
but there's bigger and better people or higher people that we're going to have to talk to about this. And, you know, it's kind of knowing who to talk to in those instances to resolve the problem before it becomes a major problem. So,
and Gloria just commented in the chat, and she says, I have Magna tiles put as furniture and a zipline couch as learning manipulatives. And if that's the case, then your learning manipulatives category probably just
It's
got
pretty,
maxed out.
yeah,
But that's a very good example of how specific feedback like that you can give to us helps us, because then we're able to take it, show them an account, show them an example, and say this is the issue we're running into. Is that a glitch, or is there something in the process that triggered that? And
yeah.
then we can
And
help narrow in what,
on that
where, and
note,
how.
whether you're with StepUp or AAA, if you message us with something, please just specify so we know who to reach out to. But particularly with StepUp, because I am compiling a list of just general concerns. But sometimes what they say back to me is, well, send me a list of those parents' names and email addresses so
Yep.
we can
Reach
check
out.
on those individual accounts. So
Yep.
I may regret this, but I'm going to say, if you are a parent who has had something wildly miscategorized from a My Scholarship purchase, please email HEF, email me through HEF, and give me your name and the email address that you use on the account and what your purchase was and what they categorized it as. Because if he comes back and says, okay, well, you're saying this is happening to all these parents, give me their email addresses so I can look into it, I want to have some that I can send. So you can reach me through the forum or email info
You will regret it. That's what someone says. Someone just commented, you will regret it.
I probably
It's thousands of us.
Probably tons and tons of them. But I'd like to have a list to pull from, all the same.
Yes.
I may not send him every single one, but I'd like to have examples to give him so that he can see, one, that it really is happening, and two, so that some of you, at least some of you, can get these things corrected, hopefully. Where they can, if they're not going to remove the caps right now, at least maybe they can put it in the right category.
Somebody says, "Oh, Crystal," with the like a frowny, exhausted face. Tiffany says, "I had a stuffed animal purchased from the zoo, moved from the correct category of learning manipulative, creative play, moved to field trip or state park admission." So that's interesting.
Yeah, so I think they're also my biggest. Where I've been baffled the most is the My Scholarship purchases, but I know that they are also manually recategorizing reimbursements parents submitted. So if the parent submitted it as a stuffed animal, they just decided to recategorize that because it was purchased at SeaWorld, they put it as a field trip admission. So again, if you have something that has been miscategorized, obviously miscategorized like that, you can email those to me. I'll flag them and kind of put them in a separate folder list in my email so that I have them to refer to if he asks me for examples.
Yeah. Yes, and that that's something important is for the calls that we're having with them, the specific information. Some of this stuff can be done on the forum as well. We could put a place up in the forum. I think there already is.
I could make a post in the
PEP
forum
section of the
about this
forum.
today that just says comment here if you
And you can
have had
comment
something
below that.
miscategorized. Tell me what I can. The same thing I just said. I can put a post in the forum for people to do it.
Because that's externally facing, where he could log in and see that as well. They might even be able to pull
That would probably
a work
actually
list
be
from
easier
something
for
like that.
him, even though he may then ask me to send him parents' individual emails because he won't be able to see that from the forum. But
No, yeah. The
Chris,
joining some.
them
Sorry.
to send you a screenshot of how the reimbursement was categorized.
yes, if you email me, you can attach a screenshot as well. Just because I'm thinking the more that I have the more that we can show of individual parents that
It
this
helps
has
them
happened
narrow
to,
in.
it becomes it legitimizes the concern, right? It's not just me saying I've seen it somewhere. I can show you
Right.
accounts.
And you know what? I'm not saying this is everyone, so please don't burn me at the stake for saying this, but I have mindlessly clicked a button and didn't realize I clicked that and thought I did or didn't and moved forward and then went back and had to realize like, oh man, I'm the reason why I clicked that wrong. That's my bad. I literally do that thing in my head where I'm like, I make sure not to click this button right here, and then I'll click it, and then I'll move on, and then I'm like, why did I click that button? I told myself not to click it, and there I am, the the source of my own problem. Not to say that's everybody, because y'all aren't necessarily as weird as
Yeah,
I
and
am.
from the My Scholar Shop, it's obviously not the parents categorizing it
Yeah,
for
yeah.
you, but yeah.
But there are all the time there are it's figuring out where and why and how to patch. Whether it's information or the system glitched or they're processing things incorrectly or whatever it is. Like it's all about the more information we have, the specific informations on what the issues are, we can then narrow.
Yes,
Help
and
give it to them so they can help narrow. Not
Brenda
us.
and
We're not
I
narrow.
and Brenda and I and the parent that emailed us earlier this week are all sort of just suggesting that they just remove the category caps and then they won't have to worry about all this mess of where they put things. But in the meantime, I want them to be aware of what's happening and if they can at least fix, like putting a zipline couch in learning manipulatives means that your whole budget pretty much now for learning manipulatives for the year is gone. So that needs to be fixed if they're going to keep the caps. So,
Yeah, Danielle asked, what are the consequences of going over these made up categories?
that I haven't been able to get a clear answer on. I know that they will start denying purchases if you've hit the cap in the category. That's what the caps are there for. But I don't know how closely they're monitoring that right now. And I haven't heard of anybody getting denied because they've hit a cap so far. But that would be my concern is that then you go to purchase something else that is legitimately in that cap and it's denied because they're telling you you've hit your cap. That's my concern for parents.
We had another person ask. They said joining late. Did you already discuss approved reimbursements that have yet to be put on the U.S. Bank cards? Some of our students says there is a delay with no time frame as to when the funds will be put on the card. I think somebody else asked the same thing. They said joining kind of late. Have we
Yeah,
discovered
we haven't
covered
discussed that
reimbursement?
yet today. I don't have any additional information as to time frame on what that's looking like. I know parents have been told all kinds of things, everything from being told that it's a US Bank issue and not a StepUp issue, and then US Bank tells them the opposite and they're going back and forth. I know that's happening. That's something that I am going to put on my list of concerns to
Yeah, I believe
communicate.
that is something that's on the list to talk to them
Uh,
about,
yeah,
but we don't
but I
have
don't
any
know.
new information on that right now.
One question, Brenda, that you might be able to answer that I see parents have asked a lot is the 60 days for processing reimbursements in statute? Or is that something that StepUp, like, is there actually something holding StepUp to that time frame?
Well, that's two different questions.
Yes.
Yes, it's in statute. And two, what's holding them to that? Nothing but their attempt to try to meet that deadline. And because there's no other option or way for the legislature to put money elsewhere. It's just very complicated, and it's not like you can take it to the governor and it's going to make a difference. It's not going to make it because Step Up has the money and they're going to get it out. But what happens if you say, well, sorry, Step Up's not going to be the one? Then there's nobody to send them the money to, because this is tax credit money, and Step Up had to raise that in order for them to be able to give it out. So there's no way within the confines of the law to do it any differently. So legislature, if you're going to get your money, you're just going to have to bear with the scholarship funding organization as they try to work through this very complicated issue.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what Jason was saying at the start with patience, because I know it's frustrating, especially when it's not helping things that when you reach out to chat support, you're being told a bunch of crazy stuff. That's not
Yeah.
helping at all. But
No.
the reality is that StepUp is working very hard to get everything running smoothly for parents. And we are seeing some of that behind the scenes process, so we know it's happening. It's just
Mhm.
taking time because there are so many moving parts, not only for PEP, but between all the different scholarships.
Mhm.
And not just, it's not as simple. Like I saw a parent saying, well, if they're this backed up with reimbursements, why can't they just let parents volunteer and they could train us and have us, and then we could all help approve reimbursements? Well, it's not that
What's the
simple.
guarantee that that would actually move things along any
Yes.
faster?
And as well intentioned as that is, like I'm willing
Yeah.
to volunteer my time to help other parents get reimbursed. I know it's well intentioned. But the reality is that there are all kinds of regulations that they have to follow when they're dealing with parent money, and there's a process that has to be followed, and there are certain criteria that have to be met, and it's just process that's going to take time. And they are trying to automate some of it, which in the long run will, I think, be a great thing. But then that requires building out all the tech side of that automation and working on all the glitches, which is what they're doing right now. So
Mhm.
patience, I think, is a good thing. But I
Yeah.
hope that it helps parents to know that there is movement happening. It's just all happening in the inner workings, so you're not really seeing the results yet.
And let me just say that there's a learning curve for parent volunteers. So it could be June before you learn the system enough to be able to even be helpful. We're
Yeah.
trying to figure it out, and we've been on this since when? June?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Speaking of glitches in systems and automation, there are 34 beautiful people on our stream with us today. And I know for a fact that not everyone here is supporting HEF. So you're benefiting from the work that we do, and we will keep doing it regardless. We do ask that you visit our support page, which is flhef.org, and then move right on over to support us, and click one of these nifty little tabs that lets you donate. We as with everything, we experience drop off as well. So we've had some parents who signed up and then some who let it fall. Maybe their card got hit, or they had a new card and the number fell off. Things, it happens, or they just decided 3 months was enough and we're good. There's tiers here, everything from $5 a month, which is I think less now than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. How inflation helps things. $10 a month, 25, and there are different tiers. If you have a business that you would like visibility on, we have a recognition wall. The $100 a month tier actually becomes a tax write-off, and you get to be featured on this wonderful wall of people who support us and their businesses, and so our community can see who our supporters are and choose to do business with them as well. We have electrical companies, we have um, educational companies, home education instructional programs, and the like. You can peruse that, but please take a minute and oops, that's the wrong one that I clicked. This one here. Okay. Please take a minute and visit that and show us some support. We do need it. We are fully funded based off of our support. I think that's something that's very important to realize. Um, that
you
all of the work that we do.
right there. We're not fully funded.
Oh,
We are funded by parent and business support. We're not fully furnished.
we
And
are not fully funded. Right?
okay,
Yeah. Yeah. No.
We are
No.
solely funded by solely funded.
Yeah. Yeah.
we're
Solely.
so that's the right
That's
word.
the you know I keep harping on communication and choosing the right words, and you are correct. We are not fully funded. And that's very important to
There's no tax deduction because we're not a 501c3. We cannot lobby and be a 501c3. It would really we could, but the amount of money we could spend toward lobby would be very limited. So HEF has chosen not to become a 501c3. We're working on another route, but that's going to be a little complicated. We have a call this week to investigate how we can do that if you're interested in a tax deduction. But I know as far as a charitable deduction in that category, you'd have to be giving a lot of money away in order to even be able to calculate that. I quit trying to claim that in my tax, in my annual tax report. That's not what you call it, income tax, whatever, where you pay the government money. Because for 3 years, the cap was so high on that, in order for you to be able to count any of it, I just never met that threshold. So I just give to who I want to give to, and it just is part of my giving. So just make a point of that. People are giving because they think it's going to be a tax deduction. Right now, it's not a tax deduction. So
it is for the vendors, and it is
it's
for
a marketing. It's a marketing write-off, is it
That's
not?
correct.
Advertising.
That's correct.
So
That's correct.
I just want to be clear to what it is that your donations are, and how you can use those. You know, I look at it as $5 a month turns out to be $60 a year. How much is your rights and your privileges and your income for PEP, if you've chosen to take that, or for FESUA, how much is that worth to you? And if it's not worth a cup of coffee a month, then it's pretty sad, because there have been people who have invested their lives in trying to make these options available to you. And so, you know, I kind of quit giving up coffee, and I used to love to go to Starbucks, but I don't do that anymore. So, you know, you can make your cup of coffee at home and be sending that dollars to
Leonard. Sorry. Go ahead.
To HEF.
Yes. Leonard makes a great point. He says we need to manage expectations appropriately. Try not to spend over the categories until we are told we can. Don't spend money we don't have until all the glitches are ironed out. And work within the parameters we have access to at the moment. Thank you for rolling this program out early. If you had waited until everything was perfect, we may not have this opportunity for years. I think that's a really interesting thing to realize, is that if we wait till everything was perfect, it delays everything so much further out. It's a good mindset to have, or a good thought to keep in mind.
That's great comment, and I totally agree. However, let's think about this. If they had made the start date on PEP next July instead of this July, we'd be dealing with the same issues that we have now, because they don't understand home education. And we've got to have the system working to know how to correct the problems. So
some of the things may have been smoother if they had had more time. But you're right that these little nuances that they didn't even know were issues until parents got into the system would still be emerging. They just didn't know. They don't know what they don't know about home education.
And every time there's a new program, we have these same issues with districts, with, you know, like schools writing board policies that we have to go and educate them about. It may sound good, but it doesn't work for us, you know. And and the state colleges, they've got to be worked through. All of these issues are unique to home education, and so the systems don't understand us, and that's why it's always an education project really. Every time we get a new home education contact person at the district, they come in with the mindset of public school. And so, you know, almost 67
The
different
learning curve.
people that we've got to go re-educate.
Yeah.
And so we don't know what you're seeing. You report to us, and then we take it from there and go and educate the people that needed to be educated. And
And
so
it's a lot of work.
it's a lot of
And
work.
This
It's
is
very
why
time.
we exist.
who is Brevard Homeschool Evaluations? Is that I don't remember who that is,
I
but
think
they're
that's uh, Curtis Tucker. I think that's who that is. I could be wrong.
okay. Lupita?
Lupita. I
I
think
thought hers was different.
yeah, she's changed her name, I
Oh,
think.
it's
Not
Julie.
personal name.
Julie Pringle. Julie Pringle is who it
Julie.
is. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Julie, as you can tell by her fancy badge, is a sharer. She has shared our stream multiple times, and thank you for that. Deline Howell as well. If you want to earn your sharing badge before we hop off here, make sure to share it. Say something like, I just finished this stream with these wonderful people. It was so helpful. If you homeschool, check it out. Something like that. That'd be
I
great.
do want to add one comment
But,
about that guy's comment real quick before we move
oh,
on
okay.
too far. I do appreciate the attitude of gratefulness that was expressed, because there are a lot of issues that we're running into, but that doesn't remove the fact that this is still an opportunity for a lot of families that they didn't have. So, um, if you're a family that has access to any of your money, because I know some of you are still waiting to be switched, and that's really frustrating. But if you're a family that has access to your money, even if it's being miscategorized and you can't access all of it because of the caps or whatever,
Mhm.
I think the thought that he was expressing is it's still something you didn't have before. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that thought, and that's a good way to keep perspective, I think, as we're trying to work out all of the other issues.
So Julie says, Amen. We have been blessed and need to pay it forward. And she's a big sharer with our stream. So wanted to give her a shout out, and I appreciate her saying that. Raven asks the question, what is the main goal of PEP in taking these test scores every year? We all know just how unique homeschooling and each child is, and wonder if standardized tests will accurately show the benefit of this program. So I'm going to scroll back over to our recognition wall real quick as I answer this one. You're welcome, by the way, to the stream. I think it's pretty clear that you haven't been on any of the ones before, because we've answered this question like a lot. I want to point you to one of our sponsors on the recognition wall. It's Northridge Academy, and they actually have licenses for a test called the STAR test, and it breaks down by category what your child is doing, and the test as they take it incrementally gets harder. So you can plot their different advantages and disadvantages, or strengths and weaknesses as they move through, and they can take that test throughout the entire year, and you can kind of gauge their progress. So it's a very useful test. It's also a test that can be used to satisfy the PEP requirement. And I say all of that
And
because
by the parent at home.
and can be proctored by the parent at home or through the computer. And I say that because the test scores that get submitted would be one final one at the end, and the compilation of all of the test scores, the compiling them, allows them to test the program as a whole. It's not about your individual child. It's not about your child's test scores. It's about them taking the test scores at the end, compiling them into a composite score, and seeing how well the program is or isn't
Yes,
working.
which they aren't even doing until a 5-year period. So for now,
Right.
for the next 5 years, they are gathering all the
accumulate.
scores, and then we'll anonymously compile them
Mm-hmm.
into an overall score that they can use to assess the PEP program.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about assessing individual students year by year.
Correct.
I'm not sure we actually answered the question. We gave him that person a lot of information, which is needed. But what was the actual question? What's the
They wondered if a standardized test will accurately show the benefit of the program. Like, what's the point of the test scores each year?
Well, that's the only one of the 5 home education evaluation methods that can actually be that can actually gather any information in a place. Can you imagine them trying to use the teacher evaluation from however many teachers are doing the, portfolio evaluation, and how would you put that in a category? So how would you compile that information? So no, it probably won't give a good picture of home education, but it will give them whether this program is working. I don't think people who don't home educate will ever get the full benefit and understanding of how valuable home education is when
Yeah.
by the parent, but it will test the program. It will give,
True.
uh,
We'll give benchmarks, and
yeah,
Yeah,
and
it
the,
gives them
especially
like
over 5 years.
an objective, gives them an objective way of measuring whether the program is quote unquote successful.
Mhm.
yes,
Um,
and I think in 5 years, I'm really excited to see those test scores, because if parents are
Yeah.
doing one-on-one education for their children and they stick with it for 5 years, the results are going to be amazing, especially with this STAR assessment that
Mm-hmm.
Northridge Academy has set up, is that um, the parents know how to gauge what their children are learning, and the kids will be so familiar with the kind of test it is, there won't be any um, first time seeing the test and being afraid and being in an unfamiliar environment, which I think is going to be a good way to accurately measure what the kids know.
Mm-hmm. And
Hopefully that
they
answered
they
your question.
replied and said, "Yes, I finally made it on. I'm so excited to be here. Oh wow, this has not come across in our PEP group. Amazing information. Thank you." I will have to say that many of the Facebook groups centered around PEP, etc.,
If
are. Go ahead.
Can I jump in on that? If you have a
Uh-huh.
Facebook group other than the one that Joanne Stead runs, because I'm in that one.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a Facebook group other than that that's about PEP that is still not having clear information about the purpose of the tests, please invite me to join that group.
Yeah.
Because this is information that we've been trying to communicate to parents for months at this point. So if it's not getting out there into certain circles, I'd rather drop into that circle and tell people about our forum and where they can find all of that information.
Absolutely. And of course, we have a forum. So if you're new on the same website, flhef.org, we have a forum there, and we go through all. I say we, Crystal has put a lot of information there and made it available with painstaking accuracy down to timestamps of when this was updated and changed, and so you can always know what's current that we have. So please take that and share it to whatever group you're in, if they're not sharing accurate information,
Yeah, and the
because
forum
we're
requires a
trying
site
to.
membership, but it's free to set
It's
one
free.
up. Yeah.
Yeah, the forum membership is free. There's no charge for any of that. But while you're there, you could go ahead and show us some support. That would be great too. Anywho, it is 1:17. We're quite over time. Um, I appreciate everyone for being here. Brenda, thank you for your time as always. Crystal, your information is invaluable that you gather throughout the week and bring as well. Um, is there anything uh, that you want to add as we close?
I don't have anything. I think we covered all the important parts, but be sure and join us next Monday, because we will have an update after our call on Wednesday
True.
with StepUp about the PEP program, and hopefully more people will be approved, and just keep us informed so we can help you.
I did run a poll during the live stream for the audience, and I asked them, would reels with short, helpful information be something you would want to see midweek? So maybe something that we could start rolling out, little bite-sized little videos, just to kind of give updates on. 88% said yes, and 12% said no, not really. Um,
You do know you're making more work for us.
Well, for me, yes. Um, as we get stuff that's really, really hot, we might actually
We
consider
could
doing
do a
some of
quick update, like
that.
say after the call
30
Wednesday.
seconds, right?
Yeah.
Little
Little
things like
quick
that.
recap. Yeah.
So we'll keep that in mind. We thank you for participating in all the ways that you have today, especially share and support. and participate in polls and the conversation. The questions that come through the comments are always awesome. We really, really appreciate you being with us each time, and help us spread the word out there that we are the home education lobbying organization for the state of Florida, and let people come and figure out what we're about, resonate with us, so that we can connect with them and help lobby for them as well. Our classroom, the world is our classroom, and so that we want to keep it that way. Without further ado, I'll go ahead and call it to an end. We'll share our top sponsors one more time and thank FPEA for being one of those. And I think that's it for today. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your week. You'll be hearing from us soon enough.
Thank you. Bye-bye.